Lipton, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning.
Antonio Conte, what was he doing? What do you think he was doing?
Look, I've had enough of the excuses, actually. Excuses from Antonio Conte. He seems to take the credit whenever they win and no one's responsibility when they don't win. And I don't think that's acceptable, actually. Some of the points he makes are quite relevant. I do think that there's a culture of inhibition within that squad. But he's getting paid 15 million quid a year to try and fix it, not to blame everybody else and to blame the players. And there's no way, if I'm in his dressing room today, that I want to play for him tomorrow. And, he's probably lucky it's going to be 10 days till he sees the players again because of the international break. But I don't see how he benefits anyone from that. Maybe when you're 3-1 up, the super intelligent, brilliant coach, Italian on £15 million a year, knows how to see out a 3-1 win against the bottom team in the league. Isn't that his job?
It feels like it is his job, and it feels as if other results had gone, or maybe if a full slate of matches had been played and they were no longer in fourth, then the owners and Daniel Levy would have had to act. But it feels like there's a weird stalemate where Antonio Conte more than likely will still be the Spurs manager the next time they take the pitch.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get rid now. This obviously going to look really stupid in 24 hours when he's sacked, but I actually don't think they're going to get rid now. I think they're going to stay to the end of the season and then agree on both sides that that's enough. We've had enough. Thanks very much. And we move on. I personally think that they should act and make a change, actually. And I don't normally do that, but I can't see there's any value in continuing with a manager who simply doesn't want to be there. And he's made that abundantly clear. But the argument, I guess, is, well, they are still in the fight for fourth. Destabilisation now wouldn't do them any favours. Are you going to get anybody in to actually do the job who isn't Ryan Mason? This is not fair on Ryan Mason to have to inherit a mess of a dressing room for the second time in 3 years. So that being the case, let's just bumble on and hope somehow we win 6 of the last 10 games and still fourth. But it's a shambles, isn't it?
Is this a situation, Martin, that needs Harry Kane and the Spurs leadership in that dressing room to kind of almost take him aside and have a conversation and say, well, you can't call us out publicly. Like, say it to us behind the scenes all you want, but will it take some of the players to maybe have a conversation with him?
I don't think it's going to stop him, is it? Because nothing ever does. This is what you get with Conte. The surprising thing, maybe it's not a surprising thing, is that the things that normally take 2.5 years to unravel have unravelled in 18 months or less than that. But it was the same with Mourinho, wasn't it? Everywhere he goes, the timescale before the implosion gets shorter. I think when the managers get older, their patience or their tolerance of what they don't like is shorter as well. And therefore, they lose their rag earlier. And Conte seems to be going down exactly the same path that Mourinho does when things don't work, seeking to blame rather than seeking to change.
We only played a short clip there of the press conference. It's like 10, 12 minutes, I think, of him largely uninterrupted detailing the history. And I don't know, did he come out and clarify afterwards that he wasn't complaining about the owners? Because it felt like he was complaining about the owners. Certainly, well, that was the impression that we all took from the immediate, like, oh, you seem to be saying that partly this rests with the owners. And then I was like, no.
Well, I'm told that he clarified with the board and said it was about the players, not them, and that they've accepted that for now. Let's see. I mean, a lot of the fans will see it both ways. It is the players, but it is the manager, but also it is the ownership. That would be their argument. They did give him £180 million to spend this summer. It's not as if they're shortchanging the bloke. He was the one who went out and got Perisic, who's not performed, albeit he scored a goal at the weekend. He's got his mate Paratici signing the players, and then he doesn't pick the players that his mate signs for him. It's all a bit bizarre, isn't it, really?
You mentioned that the excuses, Martin. This isn't the first time. Like, after the AC Milan exit in the Champions League, he starts attacking the fans, saying the pressure in terms of the winning the trophy as a club was getting to the players and affecting the atmosphere within the stadium. So, like, if you're attacking the fans and attacking the players, it screams of a man asking to be sacked.
Yeah, I think he wants out. Look, as I said previously when I was on the show, I don't blame him. I think there's other factors that are hugely pressing on his mind at the moment. I think he's still suffering from the aftermath of the operation. He's lost his gallbladder. Someone pointed out it's not bad to lose your gallbladder and show more bile, but there you go. and he's the death of his three mates and all of these things. I think he must be back in Italy where he feels at home. And I don't, on a personal level, have an issue with that. I just think he should be showing a little bit more respect for the institution of the club and the supporters, not necessarily the players, by the way, but for the supporters and the club, and just get his head down and get the job done. If he's going to stay to the end of the season, which he probably is, stop moaning, just do your job for 6 weeks. It's not exactly that difficult.
He said they struggle to cope under pressure, like not within that clip we played, but like the players struggle to cope under pressure. That's a crushing indictment of any professional footballer, surely.
Yeah, I think it's a legitimate argument, actually. In the biggest of games over the last 5-6 seasons, they have not been able to see out results when they should have done, with the exception was the miracle game in Ajax in 2019, but that was 4 years ago. And worrying thing is that the majority of a lot of that team, not the majority anymore, but a lot of that team is still at the club. They certainly were at the club last year, and the Tottenham have gone very much backwards from the high watermark, which was the 16-17 season. We're talking 6 years ago. They've never got anywhere close to that level. And when they finished runners-up to Chelsea and were, never going to win the league, but certainly were the only team who could deprive Chelsea of the title. And there's no question that things have gone backwards since. And that's, of course, since they left White Hart Lane. They had those 2 seasons or a season and a half at Wembley. Then they've moved into the new stadium, then COVID, etc. There've been individual performances that have been half decent, but you never really believe that Tottenham are going to win anything with this team, do you?
Newcastle have overcome something of a bit of a wobble and look like they're getting back to some form, and Isak's starting to score goals, and they obviously have games in hand which, if they win, will take them clear of Spurs in 4th. At this stage, do you expect Spurs with Conte to be able to turn this around and to finish in the top 4?
No, but then again, I've been thinking 5th or 6th all season, so for a long time, actually. At Christmas, I thought the only team that could stop Tottenham finishing top 4 was Tottenham. Well, they've managed that quite spectacularly, and I think they're going to miss out. I do. I think they're going to struggle. They'll win 3 or 4. They'll lose a few. They'll draw a couple, and they'll end up in 5th or 6th. I think, and I think that's a logical assessment of where we are at the moment. But the board and Levy must be making the same consideration. They must have the same. So is it just that they don't feel they'd be able to get a manager in, and it would be Ryan Mason, and so therefore that would be unfair on him? Like, what's stopping them from getting rid of Conte at the moment? I don't know. Maybe there's clauses in the contract that will make more sense to let it run down. Maybe that he gets the bonus if he's in 4th place when he's got rid of, for example. I have no idea. Yeah. I have no idea. I haven't seen the contract, and I don't want to say that that's the case, because I genuinely don't know. Maybe they don't think there's an alternative. Maybe they think that he can, through tough love, turn it round. Honestly, I don't know. All I can say is, if it were me, I'd have said after the AC Milan game, enough is enough. But that's me. I'm wrong. I'm not the owner. It isn't my money. I'm just on this occasion I'm talking about as from a fan's perspective, even from a journalistic perspective. I think it's time to do it. But that's just my opinion. There'd be millions of others.
I don't think we've spoken about Luis Enrique as a potential candidate for this gig. Certainly, Enrique has one of those CVs that would allow him to come in and be in charge, but like Mourinho was in charge and Conte is in charge, so I'm not sure. It seems almost like it's a similar alpha dog that you're getting, but he might be the spark that the club needs. What's your assessment of him as a potential candidate?
Look, I honestly, I don't know who would make a difference. The one thing I think is that if Pochettino comes back, the morale in the club changes immediately. He will give everything a boost because the fans recognise that he gets the club. And that is quite important, I think, is the attitude and atmosphere of the supporters. Luis Enrique clearly did a fantastic job at Barcelona, but it is Barcelona. It's a 2-club league. Was he any more successful at the national level than Gareth Southgate? No. Would people want Gareth Southgate at Tottenham? Probably not. So why Luis Enrique? And he had arguably, as good a squad, if not a better squad, over those 2 tournaments. Do you look at Almiron from Sporting Lisbon? Again, is another option, would be a change. A lot of Portuguese managers have come in recently and not done so well, So wherever you go, it's going to be a difficult call. I still think the easiest call, but probably the best call, would be to go to Pochettino again. But, they do say never go back.
Would you expect, I'm not going to say a mass exodus, Martin, but an exodus of sorts if Spurs don't get that Champions League spot?
I think there'll have to be. I think there needs to be a significant change anyhow, come what may. This current squad is no better on a good day than fourth. So if the ambition is to be better than fourth, which I assume it is, you have to change the squad. Now, we know we've got the left back coming in from Udinese next season. I think him on the left and Poch on the right will give them a bit more thrust, which is important. But they need a playmaker. Tottenham have needed a playmaker ever since Eriksen left, and they haven't replaced. I don't understand why. That's Conte doesn't want to play with one. I think you need someone to unlock teams. If that's Maddison, perhaps, then great. I think he could be the answer. I think Lucas Moura has to go. The boy Danjuma is clearly not going to be there next season. Longlay's not going to be there next season. They'll get rid of one of the midfielders. There's going to be a significant change, no question. And that's irrespective of what happens in the rest of this season.
But then you have a squad there of players like Richarlison, who clearly Conte hasn't been able to get the best out of him, so maybe someone else will.
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, it'd be helpful if he stayed on the pitch fit for more than three games at a time. He lasted 5 minutes on Saturday, and you can't blame players for injuries. But he seems to have had more than his fair share this season, and that's not helped anybody. He's not scored a league goal yet, and he's played quite well in games, and he's had a couple of very tight VAR calls, and it's now playing on his head, clearly. But you want your players to be stronger than that. You want them to do better. You can't rely on Kane and Son to score every goal every season forever. And without Bentancur, he's huge loss for them. Let's be honest. I mean, Bentancur plays in that game, they don't lose, they don't draw, they'll win the game on Saturday because he'd have driven the ball forward, he'd have changed the dynamic of the game. But he's not there. Others have got to fill the void, and they're not capable, it seems, at the moment of so doing. That's not to decry the lack of intensity and effort. It's just that they lack that player who can carry the ball.
Martin, we'll leave it there. Good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers. Thanks. It's Martin Lipton, football writer with The Sun, giving us his thoughts this morning on the situation